Hey everybody, welcome back to Electric Cafe. This video is an album review on the beloved 1990 album, Happiness. The Beloved were a synth pop, sort of dance, and also did a little bit of acid house. Did a couple albums. I think they had two or three albums, right? The Beloved is John Marsh and Steve Waddington at the point of this album, and then later on Steve left the band after this album, and then his wife, John Marsh's wife, joined the band for their next album. The Beloved is always somebody I've wanted to check out, but I just never kind of got around to listening to them. A lot of people in America don't know them, but I think if they knew the song Sweet Harmony or they heard it, they probably, like me, being an American, I remember the song being played on alternative radio and the music video being played on, some maybe 120 minutes on MTV or maybe some dance program or something like that. But I always really liked that song. In fact, my dad really liked that song when it came out in 1993. It was a really good song, but just for some strange reason, I never got into checking out their albums, and that's kind of why I'm doing this channel, so I can kind of fill in the missing pieces of stuff that I've wanted to go over, and stuff that I've wanted to find and eventually listen to. There's some bands that I've just totally forgot to check, and there's some that I know a good amount of their material, but not some key pieces here and there. And then there's some bands where I know their first 10 years and I don't know their last 20 years. It's kind of that's kind of why I'm going through a lot of this early part of my childhood to kind of fill in the gaps of what that I missed, that I didn't get to in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, which I consider my youth. And that's kind of what I'm focusing on this channel for the first at least year or two, and then eventually I'll catch up to some 90s and 2000 stuff, and then eventually to some stuff that I've been listening to the last 10 or 15, 20 years. But I was pleasantly surprised to see that Martin Phillips produced this album, so that was a good sign when I started reading up on this as I was listening to the album. He did some great work with Erasure and Swing Out Sister and Cause and Effect and even London Beat, and some others. So I was excited to see his name. I think highly of him, and it's always a name that you can count on back in the day, that I would look for a good producer. The sounds on here is kind of it's a synth pop blending with like house music and a little bit of acid house and also even a little bit of techno and trance. But for the most part, it's synth pop dance music. And I think probably my favorite songs on here are Don't You Worry, The Sun Rising, Scarlet Beautiful, and Wake Up Soon. Those are my four favorite tracks on here. John has a good voice. His lyrics are kind of, they're feel good lyrics. He seems to write very positive, very happy lyrics, and that's why that album's called Happiness. I think they're very positive lyrics. They're not, which I respect. They're at times can be a little bit cheesy, but for 1990 and dance music, not looking for exceptional in-depth lyrics or groundbreaking lyrics or anything like that, but I do really respect that there is kind of like I wouldn't say there's kind of like a hippie-ish, but there is kind of a very positive and carefree and very, wouldn't say heartwarming or anything like that, but it's nice that he's kind of being very positive and it seems like a peace, love, which is, the origins of hippie music and even acid house, and maybe it sort of stems a little bit from the acid house movement and being positive and stuff like that. It's his voice is more important than the lyrics in my opinion, because that's what you listen to, and I think he does a good job with synth pop and dance music. I do find I think they do a pretty good job of the music's not sounding dated. We're listening back 34 years later. So despite the energy of a lot of tracks, I appreciate that it's not very dated sounding in general, and nothing's egregiously dated. Maybe the wah wah guitars on like Wake Up Soon in the verses can be a little bit dated, and maybe there's some parts here and there might be a little dated, like with the beats. But I think that the bass lines and the progression of some of the songs, and them sort of verging on a little bit of like techno and trance, like I think they're above average for 1990, and I think John Marsh does a good, and Steve do a good job of creating some music that sounded good for the time and that don't sound dated for 34 years later. I think they did a above average job in that. I think they do a really good job of wrapping up a song, and what I mean by that, it seems like there's a couple examples in here where the last minute or two of the song, he changed my mind from a okay track being good, or an indifferent track sort of being good, or maybe even a very good track to being excellent. I think they do a good job in the last like minute and a half of wrapping up a synth pop song, and that's what I really look for a lot in synth pop. A lot of times you have a good verse, maybe a good chorus, and then you kind of go back, and then there's a bridge, and then it goes back to the verse, and then the chorus again, and then you sort of look to the last like minute and a half of sort of taking it to another level and sort of embellishing the chorus, or embellishing the music, or embellishing the harmonies and the melodies, and maybe even the rhythm, maybe a nice fade out, right? So that's what I look for in synth pop a lot, to really kind of nail down that chorus and nail down that overall mood of the song. And I feel like the Beloved do a really good job of doing that in a lot of their songs. When I look at the tracks individually, Hello, the first track, was a single. It's actually one of my lesser favorite songs on here, or my least favorite. I think it's a good track. I just don't, it doesn't hit the spots that doesn't hit the spot for me with like a lot of the other tracks do on the album. I even kind of, I really liked quite a few of these songs in here, and I went back to some of the ones that I felt I wasn't sure if I really had the right opinion on, so I double checked, and still Hello didn't really kind of do too much for me, but I think it's a good track, but just doesn't really kind of hit the moments that I feel like a lot of other songs do on this album. But I gave it 2 stars. Your Love Takes Me Higher, 2.5 stars. And then the album, I feel like, gets really into some good songs for me. Time After Time, I really like the strings, and the chorus kind of pulls it all together. Give it 2 3/4 stars. Don't You Worry, I really like it from the first combination of the guitar, beat, and the piano. Nice keyboards, nice soft, smooth sound on here. 3.5 stars. Really like this track. Scarlet Beautiful is really good as well. 3.5 stars. It's catchy chorus. It adds some nice keyboards. The second chorus, when it adds some keyboards on that, this kind of almost sounds like a New Order track, like Dream Attack on Technique, but it almost kind of has like a New Order kind of vibe on here. Maybe even like a Love Vigilantes on here, like, because of the guitar balance with the keyboards is nice. 3.5 stars on here. Really good track. Really like those 2 tracks, Don't You Worry and Scarlet Beautiful. In fact, I put it in my want list. I went into one of the singles. It looks like one of the singles from the next album, or actually in between this album and the next album, called something Higher, Doesn't Take You Higher, or Can't Get Any Higher, or Gotta Get Higher, or something like that. But the B-side is actually a instrumental of Scarlet Beautiful, so I put that in my want list. It's only on 7-inch, but didn't look expensive. It looked like a $2, $3 record, but of the 22 that were on sale on Discogs, all of them were overseas, so maybe somebody it was only released in Spain, I think, and maybe UK, so may not be able to find one over here in America it would be hard to find one. But I put it in my want list because I'd like to have a instrumental version of that on vinyl. Would be cool. Then the Sun Rising. Strangely enough, I remembered this track. I've heard it before, and so I was pleasantly surprised. And that's kind of why I like to go back to albums that I know maybe at least a song of, or I remember uh, being 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 heralded as a good album or a good band to check out. And strangely enough, it's really strange, but I knew this song, and then also I feel like, and this may be a really wild card, but there was a time in LA that I DJ'd with a gentleman named John Marsh. And I'm thinking it must be a different John Marsh, even though I was like looking him up, and he did some stuff as Adam and Eve with his wife. And Adam and Eve always sounded familiar as well, but there's an Adam and Eve techno label from the early '90s, so I know it wasn't Adam and Eve Records. Oh, actually, it was later '90s. It was I think it was more of a trance and a house label, if I'm not mistaken, and then the later '90s, actually middle '90s, I think, from maybe Germany or Italy for some reason is on my mind. But so I knew it wasn't Adam and Eve that sounds familiar, but John and Marsh sounds familiar. There might have been another DJ that went under the name John Marsh, and I DJ'd with him in the late '90s in Los Angeles, but I can't imagine it being him because I don't faintly remember his face, but I don't know. Maybe it was him, but I don't know. It's just kind of. I do remember a John Marsh, and I was on the same bill as him, and but I'm sure it's probably just another DJ. It wasn't him, but it looks like he also did some house music on NRK Records, which was a popular techno and deep house label in the '90s and early 2000s. And they had a strong series, and he looks like he did one of the Nightlight, which was a series of DJ mixes that they asked DJs to do, like Peace Division. I remember did one, and there's some other artists in there, but I did check out one of his DJ mixes, and he had some artists that I follow back in those days, David Alvarado, and also. I'm blanking on the name. They do some tech house. I'm blanking on the name. They do. In fact, there's some very very desirable LPs they have that need to be reissued. I can't think of the name. Something Science. Is it Pure Science? I think, right? Pure Science. But yeah, it was interesting to look back, and it'd be interesting to know if that was the person I DJ'd with. But anyways, just it was strange that I was looking up John Marsh, and then I remembered I played with the John Marsh, and then I saw that he did some dance music, and I saw that he had a little bit of a DJ career in the late '90s, 2000s, and then I remembered that I DJ'd with somebody named John Marsh. I wonder if it was the same guy. Anyways, strange. Back to the album. But yeah, Sun Rising, a really strong blend of house, ambient house, and because of the background of the girl singing and the constant melody, I feel like it could be almost ambient house for the time because it's kind of consistently kind of the melody is kind of consistent, and it could be kind of verging on ambient house for the time, especially being like 1989. Not sure if it's really a deep house, but it's kind of a smoother, kind of more of a chill out Balearic ambient house track, kind of a more chill acid house track. But yeah, 4 stars, great track. Wow. I Love You More. I think that's a strong track too, 3 stars. And then my favorite track on the album, and it's really a conflicting track too, because Wake Up Soon, the track number 8, when it started, I thought it was going to be sort of a filler track. It was one of those. Like the beat is sort of dated, right? It kind of has like a wah-wah guitars on the verse, and the beat is kind of slow. And I was figuring like, I'll kind of think this track is okay, or maybe this is kind of a filler on the album. And then the chorus hit, and I was like, oh, pretty good chorus, right? But it only does the chorus like 2 bars, right? Then it went back into the verses, and I was kind of like, the guitars are kind of dated, it's whatever. And then the second chorus hits, and it's 4 bars this time. I was like, oh, that's a pretty good chorus, right? And then it goes into the bridge and sort of goes back to the sort of okay part. And then around 3 minutes and 15 seconds, like it hits those melodies, and I'm just a sucker for it. A sucker for the whole ending, the last minute and a half. And sort of went back and forth, like, I want to give this track 4 stars. But I didn't really like so much I thought it was kind of a filler and kind of a dated track. And, I was just kind of like, I was like, wow, it's kind of a conflicting track. Like, I really like the ending and I really like the chorus, but it is kind of dated. And I was like, and then I listened to it for like 2 hours straight the rest of the night. This is last night. So I was like, okay, it's 4 stars. Like, it won me over. And then I kind of got over feeling like the date. The drums are dated and the wah-wah guitar is kind of cheesy, because I got to look forward to what was coming on the chorus and that amazing melody. And that's what I think what John Marsh does really well is again, he knows how to finish track. He knows how to make a smooth, and he keeps it in the sweet spot. Like when I think of like Sweet Harmony, which I actually brought out the track. If you're interested, if anybody's interested in hearing an interesting cover version of Sweet Harmony, the band, this is from I think 2017, Man Without Country. I follow them. I have all their albums. This is their 2017 album, Maximum Entropy, I guess. They did a Sweet Harmony, the last track on the album. They did a cover song. I think it's okay. It's not as good as the original, but if you're interested, if you really like that song and you're a big Beloved fan or big fan of that song, maybe check out that album. It's kind of an updated synth pop version from 2017 that they did. But I thought I'd mention that since I was doing the review, and the only song I knew of the Beloved before this album was that song Sweet Harmony, and I remembered that they did a cover song, so I thought I'd mention it. But I really think John Harmony, they do a great job of knowing where the sweet spot is in the song, and sort of elevating it or keeping it there. And like Wake Up Soon, I think they nailed it on knowing that's the good part of the song, and sort of finishing it there and letting it play for a good minute and a half. The last almost 2 minutes is pretty much that melody. It kind of goes to the chorus, and then it kind of does the same melody without the chorus, and then finishes it with him kind of ad-libbing, right? Which I'm kind of indifferent on the ad-libbing, although I do like him kind of saying one part of the bar is okay, but one part when he's kind of ad-libbing in the background on the chorus, it's okay, but yeah, 4 stars. It just totally won me over on. I was playing that song for like 2 hours in a row. Just really excited to hear a synth pop track that I didn't know that had that good a melody on it. Just really happy. So thanks for recommending this album. Track number 9, Up and Away. The last 2 minutes are pretty cool. Again, this is one of the tracks that I thought was like okay or maybe good, and it's sort of. The last 2 minutes kind of took the track into me feeling like it was a 3-star track and saying it was very good. It's too bad he didn't continue to make electronic music, because I feel like he's really good at sort of making trance and making techno and making dance music, and synth pop he does really good with making melodies. It's kind of too bad he doesn't, continue to make music. But I gave it 3-star, and then Found is an interesting track. At first I thought it was a little cheesy, and then I listened to it a couple more times, and it kind of endeared itself to me, and I do feel like it's a nice kind of soft landing for the last song of the album, and it kind of won me over in the end. I gave it 3 stars. So a lot of goodness on this album. 31 1/4 stars divided by 10 songs is a 3.12. And I think that correlated to the album really well. It sit well at a 72 out of 100. I think it's on the low side. It's a very good album. Um, there's a lot of good songs on here. There's two that I have over 4 stars, five that I have over 3 stars, and then three of the tracks are good. So all of them are above 2 stars. Didn't feel like any of the sort of dated sounds on here really took away from the charm and the strong melodies on here and the good singing. And I think overall, I think it's a great title for the album too. Happiness. This album brought me a lot of happiness, a lot of melody, and a lot of carefree kind of dance music. It's got kind of whimsical and it's got some charm to it, and yeah, some songs that I'll definitely take away from this album. I really like, again, The Sun Rising, Wake Up Soon, Scarlet Beautiful, and Don't You Worry. And even Time After Time, I really like those songs. Those are my 5 favorite songs. If I had to nail down 5. And I also do really like Found. Up and Away is good. And also Your Love Takes Me Higher, Love You More. Some solid songs on there as well. A lot of good album. I think I could see if I heard this back in 1990 that I think I'd be consistent and still liking this as much as I like it now. And that's the good thing about like what I try to do, and I'm really serious about putting myself in the time and in the age of when I would have heard 1990, and the production it does almost reminds me of a little bit of like, because Martin Phillips on here, like the London Beat, which came out the same year, which it kind of not it doesn't sound like London Beat at all, but as far as the production and the beats on here, it does kind of remind me of that time and 1990 dance music and stuff like that, and so that's cool. And a little bit of acid house in here, not particularly in this album, but I do feel like it's kind of has a little bit of house and dance music in here, and I could see the earlier stuff, the earlier singles sort of being more acid house. And I did get a chance to hear a few of those songs as well. But yeah, overall, really good album. Really surprised and really glad I got a chance to hear this. Again, think it's a very good album, 72 out of 100. And I'm definitely going to check out the album after this and review that in the future as well. So thanks for recommending this album. Can't remember the gentleman who recommended it, but thanks for recommending it. Really happy I heard this, and I was as happy as the title of the album, Happiness. Brought me a lot of happiness. All right, thanks so much for watching this review on the Beloved's Happiness, 72 out of 100. All right, thanks so much.